gorgeous, it's Em and welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. My name's Em, I'm a former zookeeper and I'm a digital animal educator. If you haven't already, remember to hit that subscribe button down below, become part of the creature crew, and also hit that notification bell down in the corner there so you don't miss a single upload. Today's video is another pet YouTuber reacts video. You gave me so many requests in my Instagram DMs to react to Nikki Phillippi and her husband talking about why they chose to put their dog Bowser to sleep. Of course, the subject matter of today's video is a little bit more upsetting and sensitive, or at least it might be for some of you. So if you prefer to exit today's video, which is a bonus video, and come back tomorrow for a more uplifting pet video, feel free to do that right now. As ever with every pet YouTuber reacts video, I try to be as unbiased as possible whilst giving my informed opinion as somebody who's worked with animals and in particular with dogs for many, many years. But regardless of my thoughts or your thoughts, please do not send any hate to Nikki Phillippi or anybody else mentioned in today's video. And of course, as always, I want you to be part of the discussion. What do you think of the things that Nikki and her husband Dan say in the video? Do you agree with them? Do you not? Are you somewhere in the middle? Leave a comment down below, but do try and keep the comments as clean as possible. Without further ado, let's jump into today's video. Pet YouTuber reacts to Nikki Phillippi's We Have Sad News video.
And so I'm just going to jump to the point and then we're going to back up and tell you the story and explain. So over the weekend, going into the weekend on Friday, we had to put Bowser to sleep.
20 seconds in and I already just feel terrible regardless of what has happened throughout their life with their dog. It is such a difficult decision to put a dog to sleep, but also to share it with an audience knowing that you're going to be scrutinized. Not an enviable task, let me tell you.
This was not a decision we came to lightly. You know, when Dan and I were first talking about this and just how this was all going to unfold and just having conversations around it, one of the things that we said, or I said, was I was like, people aren't going to get it. Like, people are going to be upset. And Dan's response was, oh, that was a bird. Dan's response was, nobody's going to be as upset as I'm upset.
Oh yeah, they're definitely right that people are going to be so upset with this news. Dogs are so special to us as humans. We have really evolved alongside them and they're the animal that knows us better than any other animal. There's a reason they're known as man's best friend, or, you know, woman's best friend for that matter, which I totally agree with. And I don't envy them putting up this video because animals are such a sensitive topic, and rightly so, but at the same time it's just, I just can't imagine the amount of hate that they're getting right now. And people really don't want to see a healthy dog being put to sleep when it might be able to be rehomed to another family. But let's continue on.
Well, I mean, we've had Bowser for almost a decade, and he's for those of you who know him or have been around him, he's an angel, but you know, he likes to get rowdy, and that's part of the reason why I liked him.
An English Bull Terrier being rowdy. Pika. Who could have guessed? English Bull Terriers are a wonderful breed of dog, but they are just chaotic energy like 99% of the time. I think that pound for pound they have more muscle mass than any other dog, just naturally occurring muscle mass. And I was actually considering getting myself an English Bull Terrier a long time ago, and the more that I spent time around them, the more I realized I would have been completely out of my depth. That is too much energy for me, even back when I was quite a bit younger. And oh my goodness, when they crash into your legs, because they're constantly moving and they can be such whirlwinds. They remind me a lot of the Tasmanian Devil, Taz. Not that they're necessarily bad dogs, they're not. They're certainly a product of both their breeding as well as how they are raised, so nature and nurture. But really, when they just crash into your legs, you realize how muscular they are, and they do have such powerful jaws as well. So for me, it was a no, but it is really wonderful to see well-raised and well-socialized English Bull Terriers. For sure, they are a magnificent breed.
You know, for many, many years, for most of his life, he was an extremely dangerous animal outside the walls of my house. So he was definitely an outside animal that I had to keep inside.
An outside animal that I had to keep inside. That hits deep. An outside dog that I had to keep inside. That hits so deep. I think there are a lot of people who keep dogs that are not necessarily bad dogs and are wonderful at home with the people that they're familiar with, but perhaps in outside settings can be a completely different dog. I mean, maybe Jekyll and Hyde. And that must be really difficult to deal with, and very difficult to correct as well if you're not an experienced dog trainer, if you're going through this alone. So I can understand the decision to want to keep him inside, but I think that whenever a dog has difficulties, it is always a much better decision, instead of just deciding to hide them from the world, bring a trainer in, bring someone in who is a behaviorist and be able to get professional points of view. And there's so many different reasons why a dog might be a wonderful dog inside and then not so great perhaps outside. It could be lack of early socialization, it could be past trauma, sometimes being attacked by other dogs or being beaten by other humans in the past can be an issue, which is just a recurring issue that makes a dog extremely nervous or unsure or easily provoked in a setting where it feels a bit more anxious or just unfamiliar. So it's difficult to say. Maybe we might learn something a bit in a bit.
Well, and Bowser was attacked when he was a puppy, and we never really talked about that very much.
There it is.
That was a big turning point in Bowser's personality. So prior to the attack, Bowser could go to dog parks. Bowser was just calmer in general. And then after the attack, it just triggered something in him. And he was attacked by another Bull Terrier, actually my parents' old Bull Terrier. But it's something that can happen with the breed. And so ever since then, things really took a turn.
Okay. This is why it is so important when you do bring home a new dog, especially a puppy, that you are super selective as to where you socialize your dog. Not all dog socialization is equal. So I kept Kiba well away from any kind of dog parks as a puppy. Number one, dog parks are just rife with so many different diseases, especially the small dog park. So it's no place for a puppy, especially an unvaccinated puppy. But also dog parks are a kind of place where a lot of owners with a lot of different ideas on how to treat a dog and raise a dog just end up coming together, and sometimes they just let their dogs go, and you've got highly socialized dogs with highly anxious dogs with very dominant dogs, and it's just a huge disaster. So I would say if you're bringing home a new dog, the dog park is not necessarily the place to socialize. I would always recommend maybe speaking to friends that have dogs of a similar age or well-behaved dogs, maybe having your dogs meet outside of anybody's home so that there's no sort of territorial issues, and also making sure that you're with people that you can trust and who have a really nice calm energy and able to intervene very effectively if there is some kind of a scuffle. And that's quite natural. Sometimes there are scuffles, sometimes puppies don't know when to just sort of pull it back in a little bit, especially rescues that have been taken from their mothers very early. They don't necessarily know all of the cues that they would learn from their mothers as to what is too much pestering. So sometimes they have to learn, and other dogs won't always be as patient as a puppy's mother. So if you do happen to have a run-in with a dog that has attacked your dog or puppy, it can trigger them to have a lot of trauma, and this does need to be dealt with. If it's left unchecked, it can get worse. They can develop a lot of dog aggression. So you do want to make sure that you keep an eye on how your dog is doing after they're attacked. Take them to the vet just in case, because they might have internal bleeding or swelling. And just make sure that any kind of interaction, especially that your new puppy has, is a positive interaction with a dog, because the early months really do matter, and they really help to shape how your dog interacts with other dogs. And I get angry on this because I was super careful with Kiba's early socialization, but of course Kiba still got attacked. Once in New Jersey, it was by a Bernese mountain dog that was off lead, and it just barreled into Kiba and just shook him around like a rag doll. And then the second time, more recently, about 6 months ago, in Colorado, it was an Akita Husky mix, again off leash in an on leash area where you were supposed to have your dogs on leash, and the owner was like running after me going, he's friendly, and I was like, oh no, this is gonna be terrible, because I know what huskies and Akitas can be like, and like a Huskita mix is not always like the most gentle dog, and this dog just went in for Kiba, but Kiba was older at this point, about 1.5 years, and he stood up for himself, and I was able to sort of get in there and pull him apart. And thank goodness Kiba lives with 2 really well behaved dogs and has 2 best friends, which are huskies, at the weekend that he spends time with. So he spends time with 2 female Samoyeds every day and then 2 female huskies at the weekend, and he just loves all of them, and they're really steady, balanced dogs when around other dogs, so it's a really good thing he has that. They help him to have more positive experiences with dogs, but certainly if he didn't have such a constant and consistent presence of well-balanced dogs around him, he might be a completely different dog by now from those 2 issues. And Niffler just decided to poop, so if you heard that, I do apologize.
You know, we could have put Bowser down a really long time ago, and several times. And I've just been putting the day off.
Because you don't want to make that decision. That's the thing.
Yes,
when you love an animal, you don't want to make that decision.
Yes, he's seriously injured a couple different dogs.
Okay, so without knowing that specific instance, I can't say whether this was an aggressive response or if it was perhaps resource guarding or what it might have been, but any dog has the capacity to snap, even the best behaved of dogs. If a dog is anxious, if they're backed into a corner or in an unfamiliar setting, they can snap, which is why even though Kiba, who is super gentle, is always muzzled at the vet, because he does have anxiety issues when he's in an unfamiliar setting or especially away from me, and he could easily snap, and that it happens all the time at vet offices. The amount of vets who I personally know who say that they've got the best behaved dogs coming in, but in an unfamiliar or stressful situation they might snap. So that could be a factor in this particular instance.
Including Zoe, who's standing right here. I've had her stitched up a couple times.
Okay, so Bowser apparently seriously injured a few other dogs to the point that one even needed stitches. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall and to be able to observe why this happened. Was one of the dogs getting in Bowser's face and being overly rambunctious? Was Bowser particularly a dominant dog? Were they in a confined space where they couldn't get away from each other? I would love to have known what that instance was where he felt the need to take a chunk out of another dog. Again, and I'm going to be saying this a lot, if your dog has some problems, behavioral issues that you're not able to really identify or to deal with yourself, please consult a trainer or a behaviorist. It is so important, but there are steps that you can take even before that step, such as muzzle training your dog. That is a really great way if your dog has a tendency to snap in stressful situations, such as around other dogs, like unfamiliar dogs, we're at the vet, just muzzle train them, and that helps to keep so many people safe. If these attacks, which Nikki and Dan are sharing, were on humans repeatedly, then I'd be like, okay, maybe it's time to let Jesus adopt this dog. But right now I don't have much to go on by way of understanding if this dog had aggression issues or reactivity issues.
So it just got to a point to where you know, I had a son and it didn't work out for them.
Do you not want to share the specifics of that?
That makes me so nervous. Mixing young children with a dog, especially a dog that has been known to snap at either small dogs or people, it's just, for me, that's a huge no-no. That is just not, that's, to me, it should not happen. They should not be mixed together.
Once Logan got to the point of being able to crawl around and run around by himself, you know, he's really grabby too. He grabbed onto Bowser's ear, and Bowser didn't do anything. You know, he's that calm, gentle giant that lives in my house. But you know, Logan got him so good that if you know what an MMA fighter looks like or a wrestler, they have that cauliflower ear, it just balloons up. That's what happened to Bowser's ear. You might have caught a couple glimpses of it in a couple videos, but it fully ballooned up, and it took about a month for it to go back down, but now it's scarred a little bit. And you know, there was one incident that happened. Bowser got Logan in the face.
Oh, that is what I was afraid of. Let's see what happened from here on.
And it actually happened 20 minutes before we were supposed to leave to the airport to go visit her parents. So obviously it wasn't bad, but Logan still is
has a little mark.
He's still healing up from a little mark on his face from Bowser's little, we call him his dolphin teeth. So,
and it happened in a way that, like, I mean, it almost doesn't matter because the end result was the same. But in the spirit of telling the story, it wasn't like Bowser attacked Logan. Just like you said, it was like
defensive.
Yeah, Logan tried to take food from him. Oh, sorry, I had to close the window. Yeah, it happened in a moment where Logan stole food from him and, you know, really got in the mix.
Crate training would have been so useful here. So useful. I know a lot of people look at crates and just think, you know, that's like a cage, it's sad, it's cruel to crate train your dog. It's not. Dogs are den animals by instinct. They like to have small places they can squeeze into to feel safe. Kiba likes to squeeze in under my vanity in my bedroom, but a lot of dogs will retreat to a corner, and there's a reason for that. When they're scared, they want to be able to have like a den feel to feel secure. So when you are crate training a dog, not only is it great for, say, road trips, or if you have to send them somewhere in an airplane, or if you have to leave them at a groomer's. You know, groomers often have them in holding pens which resemble crates, and not all crates are like horrible wiry cages. I've got one from Impact Crates, which is lovely, and Kiba loves his. Many dogs love their crates, but what you can do is start feeding them in their crate, so they've got this positive reinforcement around the crate. That's my space, that's where I go to eat, no one bothers me while I'm eating in there. It's such a useful way of just teaching a dog about having a safe space. And this would have been so useful here. I think if you're going to have children at any point in the house, it's a great idea to have your dog already crate trained. Even if you have visitors, if it's going to be a loud party and you don't necessarily want a dog just free in a room away from everybody, just in case they're destructive, then crate training is wonderful. Crate training I cannot recommend enough. And kind of along the same lines, personal opinion here, I don't know why everybody is so obsessed with feeding their dogs in a kitchen. Maybe is that just because that's where we eat, so we naturally assume that that's where our dogs might want to eat? I mean, kitchens are one of the most busy places in a house, especially if you have a large family with adults, multiple adults, teenagers, lots of children. It's not really a safe place oftentimes for a dog to feel they're going to eat undisturbed. And in this situation where you have a dog that has been reactive, that has obviously been snappy when children have been near their food bowl, if you don't have the time necessarily to work with training the dog, eliminate the risk altogether and feed your dog in another room. With Kiba, obviously there's 3 dogs in this house now. Even though nobody is aggressive when eating, and they can literally all eat from the same food bowl if we want, we still eliminate that risk. The girls eat in one part of the house. Kiba, who's my male, he eats in my bedroom. So that kind of just eliminates the risk. Every dog knows that they have their safe spot where no other dog, no human is going to bother them. Granted, we don't have any kind of resource guarding issues in this house with our dog, so I do appreciate that it must be very difficult and very traumatizing the first time your dog does snap at either you or at your children especially. It can be very difficult, but you can find ways of managing it and eliminating that risk. It is not necessarily aggression, but it is an unwanted behavior that you can deal with. So right now, this instance with Logan being bitten on the face, that baby should not have been allowed anywhere near that dog's food bowl, and this one is on the parents. This could have been very easily avoided. Very easily avoided.
Logan tried to take food from him. Oh, sorry, I had to close the window. Yeah, it happened in a moment where Logan stole food from him and, you know, really got in the mix.
Like that lady said, you're always waiting for the worst thing to happen, and eventually it's like, is it going to get to a point to where someone else has to put him down, or I'm forced to do it because of something that horrible happened.
That is a very fair and valid point from this owner. It's very difficult when you have a dog that has behavioral issues, for whatever reason, when you're thinking of rehoming a dog, and there is honestly no shame in rehoming a dog, I'll come on to that later, but a lot of the time you do have to wonder, is this dog going to behave the same way or potentially even worse in a new environment? So what I will say is, there is no shame in rehoming a dog. If your circumstances have changed and you are no longer a good fit together, the best thing you can do is to responsibly rehome. Some people have family members who the dog is familiar with and who will accept the dog into their lives, and that's a really great outcome. Sadly, that's not what all of us can do. Some dogs end up going to a shelter, and if you do have to put your dog in a shelter, give the shelter as much information as you can. If your dog is not friendly around cats, don't think that saying, oh yeah, he's friendly around cats, is going to make them get adopted faster. It's going to cause a world of problems for a lot of people, including your dog. So be as honest as you can when it comes to rehoming, and give yourself as much time as possible. The last thing you want to do is just throw up an ad on Craigslist and think that, you know, the most perfect scenario is going to come along. Sometimes it can happen, but it's always best to give yourself that extra time. And whoever, if you do personally rehome your dog to someone who you know, give them all the information, the good, the bad and the ugly, every single piece of information. And if your dog has ever shown any slight cause for concern, whether it's aggression, resource guarding, anxiety, separation anxiety, destructive behaviors, please let people know. It is so important. But I hope that none of you ever have to get to that point. But if you do, there is no shame in it. Just try and give yourself as much time as possible and do it the right way, and be as honest as you can.
As you guys know, we're getting ready to move, and we haven't said where, so if you're like, where are you moving? It's because we haven't said it yet. But you know, we weren't sure what was going to happen with Bowser, because every time we move with Bowser, it is hard because he's special needs, like he said. So there's a lot that goes into transporting Bowser and even picking a new home for Bowser. Like, there's a lot to consider in that. And so it was really like, it was weird to have him attack Logan, you know, right before we're going to different places to possibly look to move. And this was not what we expected. So the way that this unfolded and what he mentioned about the comment, waiting for the next bite, we actually attempted to rehome Bowser, because like we said, we know that, I mean, he's our little like clown. He was our clown angel. Like, I don't, it's, sorry if I'm awkward. It's just finding the words are really awkward because it's, you know, emotional. And we contacted the Humane Society, and we had a long discussion with someone over there, and basically she made it clear to us that rehoming Bowser was not an option because he had been with us from birth, basically. I mean, Dan was he was Dan's spirit animal.
Okay, it was brought to my attention a couple of months ago, and I didn't know this at the time, that the use of the word spirit animal can actually be very offensive and very insensitive to some members of the Native American community. I don't know exactly which tribes in particular, but that's why I've stopped using that in my posts on Instagram, because it was brought to my attention. So thank you for educating me. It's just something for you to bear in mind as well, that the flippant use of the word spirit animal is not really that PC anymore.
Dan was his spirit human, you know, so they were bonded. And you know, even rehoming, apparently from what we're gathering now, when you rehome a dog, it's still like your liability if the dog were to attack someone. So it doesn't just, you don't just give the liability apparently to the next owner, supposedly. Maybe that's a state-by-state thing.
Nobody wants to hear that when they're rehoming their dog, especially from a rescue. Now, I personally would not have gone to the Humane Society for a number of reasons, which I won't talk about in this video because it would get very, very long. Sorry, there's like a hair poking my nostril. Given that they had a dog that was not behaving the way that they would want in their scenario, and they were having to alter their lifestyle to suit the behavior of their dog, number one, you know what I'm gonna say, trainer and behaviorist should have been brought in to assess. In fact, multiple trainers and behaviorists should have been brought in to assess the situation. Number 2, I wouldn't have gone to the Humane Society because they have a purebred dog, and that's not to say that that's better or worse than any other dog, but what purebred dogs do have in their favor is breed clubs and breed specific rescues. So a lot of breeds do have their quirks. Let's use the Chow Chow as an example. A lot of Chow fanciers out there, but they are also extremely stoic, and they have issues sometimes when paired in the wrong homes that think that they're getting a giant cuddly teddy bear that's going to want to be super social. Ouch, that's never going to happen. So a lot of these dogs that end up getting released to rescues often then get placed with breed-specific rescues. And the glorious thing about breed-specific rescues is that they know this breed so well, and they often have a waiting list of people who've also done their research on the breed, or who've kept the breed many times and have become like lifelong fanciers of the breed, and they will be able to best understand who to adopt the dog out to safely, as well as to provide ongoing support to whoever does take home that dog. A lot of the time rescues have such a high turnover that they won't remember one dog from 1 week to the next, so they can't really help you when you call back and say, hey, I adopted Fluffy 2 weeks ago, I'm having this issue. They're too busy, they don't have that time. Whereas a breed specific rescue, although they are also busy, they will have more time to understand what the issue is. So I would say that if you do happen to have a purebred dog and they are exhibiting behaviors that make you feel that you're not the best home for them anymore, reach out to behaviorists, trainers. But if you have just last case resort, you need to rehome, consider going to a breed specific rescue, because they will understand your breed like nobody else. So really, behaviorists and trainers would have been great. However, I can also play the devil's advocate here and say that a family home with young children is not always the best place to implement training. When you're training a dog, it has to be a group effort. It has to be an effort from everybody in the family. It's not just, say you're a married couple, oh, well, that's your dog, so you have to train it. No, if you're living together, the dog is the household responsibility, and everybody needs to participate in helping to instill better behaviors and reinforcing positively in a dog. So unless they both wanted to work together and take on the very huge task as well of trying to communicate this to their toddler, it might not have worked out anyway, even if they did bring in a trainer or a behaviorist. So that's me playing devil's advocate. I still think that keeping their dog away from their child at meal times, implementing crate training, as well as working with a behaviorist would have been really fantastic. And last case scenario, going to a breed specific rescue. But I can still sympathize, because that it's still a difficult situation.
Well, nobody knows how to take care of Bowser except for me. He has to stay inside. I have a backyard. He can go out there, he's fine, but once another dog barks in the outside from around the neighborhood, or he hears a jingle from a dog collar, he's bipolar, so he goes into this other mode. As
someone with bipolar too, I don't appreciate that so much. Can we just all calm down on using bipolar and special needs to describe behavioral issues in either people or dogs? Like, let's not diagnose dogs with human issues. That's not fair at all. Let's stop that.
And he'll run so hard that he'll try to go through the fence, and so he'll beat himself up on his head.
He used to hurt himself a lot.
He was an awesome inside dog. He stayed clean most of the time because of that, so he got to sleep on the bed and in the bed sometimes.
And a lot of you guys have asked us, since we've had Logan, how Logan has done with the dogs. And we've told all of you over and over again that he's been fine with them. You know, they were so good with him in so many ways, but it got harder the older he got, because, you know, when he was a baby, it was like Bowser wasn't going to go out of his way to aggress on Logan, so everything was fine. Like, but once he got older and he could move and he got feistier, it was Logan in Bowser's space. and Logan couldn't help but grab at him and try to steal things from him and try to interrupt him when he was eating or scream at him. And so it was almost kind of unfair to Bowser because it was like, he's a good dog-ish. And then we told you we'd mourned him years ago thinking he was gonna have to go because of those things, but he wasn't doing really anything to Logan. But the problem was once Logan got older and once Bowser crossed that line, I mean, I don't even feel like I have to explain it.
Okay, I'm trying to be as emotionally unbiased as possible and as balanced as possible, but I don't understand why this child was given access to be anywhere near a dog's food bowl, or to have the chance to get close enough to Bowser to pull on his ear until it almost looked like a wrestler's ear with the cabbagey look and being swollen for over a month. I really hope that they took him to the vet and got some painkillers and had a look at that, because, you know, localized swelling for over a month in such a tough breed of dog, that's not entirely normal in my opinion. Not that I'm a vet, but I'm just stating my thoughts. That's on the parents. God bless you. That's on the parents. That's not okay. Please keep your children away from dogs when they're eating. All dogs.
Bowser's new routine is, you know, he's got his normal corner and he's taking a rest. If Bowser's in the mood and his attention is on him, he'll walk over to Bowser, and Bowser doesn't want to get grabbed on, so he knows he has to get up and move.
Every time.
So he would,
so
he has to get up quickly.
Or relaxing. It's like, ugh.
Yes, and it's always accompanied with a growl. So he's always it's like a grumpy
like
growl, and I have to move, and he'll move to the next spot. And then if Logan follows him, it's a growl and move. And so I gotta split them up. And so,
oh, that is so frustrating. That is just dog behavior 101. This is dog basics. When a dog is growling, that is how they're able to communicate with you. They can't be like, I don't like this. They will verbalize. A growl doesn't always have to mean I'm about to rip your face off, but it's kind of the precursor to that. That's like, I'm really uncomfortable right now. Of course, not all growls are aggressive or defensive or anxious. A lot of dogs growl when they want to play. So you have to know your dog, but you would think that after almost a decade that this couple would understand that by now. And then the dog did the magic move. It picked itself up and removed itself from the situation. That is the most passive-aggressive way that a dog can remove itself from a potential confrontation. This is again on the owners. The dog was not acting out of turn at all, not being a grumpy teenager, not wanting to interact with the baby. The baby should not be interacting with the dog unless the dog wants to interact with the baby under intense and constant supervision from the parents. It's one thing if your dog is moving away to get away from your kids, and it's very much another if they're coming up to be social. You know, dogs, just like humans, sometimes need some time out and some peace and quiet. They don't automatically owe us their absolute love and devotion every second of every day in a situation when they don't want to be disturbed. You know, dogs are supposed to sleep about 18 hours a day. So a dog doesn't want to always be disturbed, especially by a child that might fall on it. You know, that's not something a dog wants to have to deal with. This dog was doing everything right. It was verbalizing its discomfort and removing itself from the situation. That it was perfect behavior from that dog and totally valid, and they should have noticed that the dog didn't want to be social with the child and either had the child, you know, kept away from the dog or allowed the dog to go somewhere where it could be just by itself, you know, in a room by itself, just chilling out, just have quiet time, up in the bedroom by himself. They said that he sleeps on the bed. Let him go in the bedroom, lock the door, you know, let him chill for a while. But for goodness sake, if your dog is not is removing itself from your presence and giving you all the signs that they're stressed, don't add to it. Don't make them have to confront their stress. Let them go and take a time out. That is a much better way to deal with this. Otherwise, the dog's just constantly being reinforced that it cannot escape this child. This child means stress. This child coming towards me will now forevermore always mean stress, and I can't get away. Maddening.
In the moment, I'm thinking, you know, I grew up with the movie Old Yeller, and I wanted to pick Bowser up by the back of the neck and take him into the backyard and put him down right there.
I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to unpack the intentions and emotions and thoughts behind that. But parental instincts are probably some of the most powerful in the world. No person wants to see their child being bullied or being pushed around or being hurt, especially when there's malice behind that hurt. But if you are packing and you're going on a trip and there's chaos and everything's going on and you can't 100% be with your attention on your child or the dog or both of them at the same time, again, for goodness sake, separate them out. Crate training would have been so great. Put the dog away in the crate, or heck, in just another room or outside in the yard for just a little while, and don't have them running around together when you can't be right there to intervene. This is on the parents. This is entirely, I'm so sorry to say, because I don't want to be hurtful, but Logan getting bitten in the face by Bowser is entirely on the parents, in my opinion, in this circumstance.
It happened on Friday, and we woke up and had a really great day with him. You know, he was fed really good food, taken on a really beautiful outdoor drive. The weather, unlike today, was perfect. Like I mentioned, we did it at our house, so we paid for the anesthesiologist person to come over, and it was good that we got to do it there.
Something that a lot of people aren't aware of is that if you are planning on having your dog put to sleep, either because they have aggression issues and you've been advised that that's the best thing to do, or perhaps because their treatment is no longer working, or because they no longer have quality of life in their old age, something you can plan to do is to have a home euthanasia, where instead of taking your dog to a brand new space where they are very uncomfortable, they might know that they're at the vet and be very stressed, have somebody come out to your home to administer the injection at home to put your dog to sleep there. You can also do this for a whole variety of other animals, and if this is something that you have to think about, first of all, I'm really sorry, and you do have my very heartfelt sympathies, but you can contact your veterinarian and a few other veterinarians, and you can ask them for what your options are, and you can also just, you know, ring around and get a quote. It will be a little bit more expensive than going into a vet clinic, because naturally it's like having a doctor on call, so it can be a little bit more expensive, but I would say that it's definitely the best way to have your pet pass away with dignity, pain-free, surrounded by family and in home environment. That would be the best, I think, for a lot of pets. So if you are able to budget for that, and that's something that you have the time to consider, then fair enough. I think that that'd be a good thing to do. Of course, if you're at the vet and you have to make a spur-of-the-moment decision at the vet, there's nothing really you can do about that, unfortunately, and it's not on you if that's the case. It's not your fault, but I'm very glad at least that Nikki and Dan were able to have one final lovely day with their dog and give him a really nice car ride, as they say. I really hope it was as beautiful as they described it, and I really hope that Bowser passed, I'm sure he did, in peace, and knowing that he was surrounded by a very familiar settings and family and love. But my personal opinion is that this might have been a bit premature. I'm not saying this to hurt the couple, I'm saying this to educate all of you that there are steps that you can take to prevent having to put a dog down. If you're dealing with a certain situation where your dog is out of hand, you feel that you cannot manage them, you feel that euthanasia, humane euthanasia, might be the best option for you, first of all, the first thing to do is to consult a trainer. Really do consult a trainer, and also a behaviorist. Behaviorists and trainers are very, very different. A behaviorist can help you get to the root of a problem. A trainer can show you how to deal with that. So you want to potentially call in two at the same time so that they can consult, if you have the ability and the funds to do that. Another thing you can look at as well is going to the vet. A lot of problems that arise in dogs, behavioral problems that is, can often be down to very, very simple things. Case in point, I was in a forum recently learning a bit more about how Lyme disease affects dogs, and somebody was sharing their experience of how their dog became super aggressive after contracting Lyme, and when they took them to the vet and they discovered that the dog had Lyme disease and it was treated, that aggression eventually went away. Some dogs can also get extremely territorial with influxes of hormones. A lot of dogs as well, when they have a toothache, can also start to get a little bit more touchy, if you will, and a bit more snappy. So I would say vet appointment, and then working with a trainer and a behaviorist would be a really good way to go. And of course, if you have a specific breed of dog, you can also consult in many forums, breed specific clubs, as well as breed specific rescues who will have breed specific resources to help you. So those are all things you can do before choosing to put your dog to sleep. Of course, sometimes putting your dog to sleep can be the right decision. It's never a nice decision, but it can be the right decision in some circumstances, not all. I would say in this case there were other options that could have been tried before getting here. It seems like they skipped a couple of steps and just kind of fell into a routine of, well, this is the way life's going to be. I don't know if they did much to really change that, if they did try crate training, if they did take him to the vet, if they did have a trainer, a behaviorist. But I would say that this was probably a bit premature, and it's sad and it's a shame, but I don't necessarily blame the parents for choosing this. Ultimately, parents have to make difficult decisions for their children. Their children come first, they're human children. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand it. So please don't send any hate to Nikki or Dan. I want to just stress that this is a very difficult video for them to have put up. I'm sure that they're probably regretting it in some ways right now, because I'm sure they're getting a ton of hate. So we don't have to add to that, but we can take away valuable lessons and we can share our thoughts. So if you do have any thoughts, please do feel free to share them down in the comments box below. And I hope that you learned something valuable from this video. That is where I'm going to leave today's video. Again, I hope that you took something away that was valuable, you learned something different, or that it opened your mind and you thought about something that you might not have if you hadn't watched the video. If that's the case, please leave a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate that. And tomorrow we will have a completely different video, a little bit more uplifting, a little bit more carefree, which will include bonus weasels. So I hope that you will enjoy that. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in another video soon. Bye!